Welcome to the virtual Global Camp Meeting Education Roundtable on the status and need for girls and women in STEM careers and studies. Perhaps some of you are asking, what's STEM? Well, STEM is the acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Some may be aware that February 11, 2021, this year, was observed by the United Nations as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. The theme for its meeting, held virtually, of course, at its headquarters, was Women Scientists at the Forefront of the Fight Against COVID-19. As the meeting focused on the World's Sustainable Development Goals for the cycle ending in the year 2030, it focused on the topic Beyond the Borders, Equality in Science and Society. You know, in that conversation and in many other places recently, we've seen statistics that UNESCO offered to this discussion. It noted that less than 30% of the world's researchers are women, and that girls, indicating a choice for science careers in high school, is also less than 30%. Our final speaker for this roundtable is Dr. Eustace A. Pennycook Sawyers. Dr. Pennycook is a physician. He is an ophthalmologist. His specialty is retina and vitreous surgery. He is also an associate professor of ophthalmology and principal faculty of health sciences and founding dean of the School of Medicine of the recently opened Adventist University of Central Africa, Kigali, Rwanda. We have with us Dr. Ginger Ketting-Weller, who is president of the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies near Manila, Philippines. Dr. Ketting-Weller is a seasoned administrator who has held high-level positions in several universities in the United States. Dr. Ketting-Weller, please share what you have learned about the state of affairs regarding girls and women in STEM studies and careers.
Thank you for inviting me to share what I've been finding as I looked at STEM and young women. Let me set the stage with some information about women and girls, specifically Seventh-day Adventist women and girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I was not able to identify any scholarly articles reporting on research findings on STEM education and girls in Adventist schools. Maybe I was looking in the wrong place, but I'll work around the topic and let's see if we can get some clarity. In April of 2019, Ophelia Berizzo, the STEM coordinator for the Chesapeake Conference in Maryland, arranged for a Women in STEM conference at Spencerville Adventist Academy. The event brought together 5 highly successful women in STEM careers to talk about what they do and to answer questions from the female students at the academy. The event was a notable success. Typically, girls don't see what women do in science, engineering, technology, and mathematics careers. Hearing from these 5 career scientists and researchers, seeing them as role models, opened the girls' eyes. One parent shared that her daughter never talks about what happens at school, but came home and couldn't stop talking about the Women in STEM presentation. The trajectory of her career options has totally changed, she said. If a girl doesn't see women as role models in certain careers, she is much less likely to think that these careers might be options for her, too. Because of the need for more professionals entering the STEM fields, including women in STEM fields, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, tracks data on women in the sciences. But first, let me stop by some research that I found on girls and education in STEM areas. And these are little clues to us of things that we might want to be thinking about. The research shows that girls' and boys' math abilities diverge around high school, with the boys pulling ahead. There is also research that shows that teachers have lower perceptions of girls' math abilities than those of boys, and that includes themselves if they're women. Young women of color are less likely to take advanced math and science classes and are less likely to enter STEM careers. It was also an interesting thing for me to find that multiple choice tests don't work as well with girls as they do with boys. There are gender gaps that correlate there, and they're quite noticeable. It was interesting also to see that girls seem to prefer project-based learning, and they do just as well in their grades, but those tests are where they get snagged by things that don't work so well for them in learning. Another research study showed that when tracking and accelerated classes are stopped, when there's no tracking of students at all into better classes or less performing classes or higher advanced algebra and regular algebra, when that's all taken out, all students, including minority and poor students, do better in math. And that includes the good students as well. That was a review of 62 studies. So we think about women as role models in science, technology, engineering, and math. And there was a major study that was done on the role model theory. Is it really true that having women role models in the STEM areas actually helps young girls to be more interested and to pursue better performance in the STEM areas as they study in school? This study that I have cited below on this slide is from a research study that shows that actually there is a very strong correlation between women role models in the STEM areas and girls being interested in entering and performing well in those areas. The quote at the end in the conclusions was, "The optimal way to encourage young girls to pursue emerging high growth roles, particularly those requiring STEM math skills, is to expose them to the professional and personal experiences of actual female role models with a successful professional trajectory in STEM fields." Interesting. Throughout many years in higher education, I've watched the yearly forecasts about high need careers. And always the prediction includes that STEM occupations are going to be growing rapidly. We'll need scientists to work in those areas. This has not changed. Just think of the pandemic when we've so badly needed scientists to help us solve the threat, treat the virus, and know how to pursue preventive action. According to the Catalyst organization, we can't just say, well, we need more women in STEM careers and make it happen. We also need to acknowledge and address the challenges that women face as they try to enter and operate in these careers. Women find themselves having to negotiate gender stereotypes, discrimination, refusal to acknowledge what they have to contribute, isolation and lack of role models, and finally, inequities in pay and promotion. Let me bring this a little closer to home. As the College of Medical Evangelists opened at Loma Linda in the year 1910, women were welcomed. The Adventist approach to healthcare in that time, the sanitarium model, natural remedies, valuing modesty, and the guidance of Ellen White's counsel, meant that women were welcomed. The first president of the institution said it. The bulletin said it. And in fact, in the early years, there was a solid commitment at Loma Linda that only women would treat women for more personal, intimate health matters. The first graduating class included 2 women with colorful names, Zenobia Nightingale and Lavina Baxter. Yes, they were a minority, but women were there right from the start. Ellen White wrote specifically about the importance of women entering the medical field to care for women. Women should be chosen and educated for this work, she said. And she specifically pointed out the need for women doctors, a much larger number, she said. It was not too long, though, until College of Medical Evangelists, CME, began to change. The change in approach and policy meant that women were, in effect, increasingly discouraged from entering medicine. Clark Davis wrote that there were a number of factors that may have affected this. There weren't many women trying to enter the profession at that time. Loma Linda changed their policy to allow men to get training in the field of OBGYN. The policy of women only caring for women was dropped, and the institution entered an effort for accreditation, which meant that they took on more traditional approaches to medical training, curriculum, and philosophy. Let me introduce you to Effie Jean Ketting, College of Medical Evangelists, the class of 1954. The changes I described, as well as the return of soldiers from World War II with the advantage of government funding for their education, meant that women were nearly shut out of medical training in Loma Linda in the late 1940s as the GI Bill of Rights came to bear. Effie Jean Ketting is my own mother. She tried for several years to get into medical school. Once she was in, she was one of only 3 women in her class of 99. She was constantly urged by faculty and other educators that she knew to go into more family-friendly fields rather than OBGYN, which she dearly wanted to do. They said that these fields would be less threatening to a potential husband and less competition for her to do childcare if she had children. It took much persistence for her to get through and all the way through to medical missionary work. The rewards once she got her education were truly satisfying to her, but she told and she retold the story of all those barriers. Nearly her whole life, she kept retelling that story because it was such a big difficulty for her. One of the things we desperately need to empower young students with is stronger math science education in our K-12 schools. I would be remiss if I did not mention Loma Linda's yearly STEM conference for teachers, developing them for higher quality teaching in these fields so that students will be better prepared to understand and work with the power of math, technology, and the sciences. Let me finish with a wish list. I wish that parents would encourage their daughters to take as much math as possible, to open the doors to opportunity. In a study that we did at Walla Walla University when I worked there, the one high school factor that correlated most strongly with students finishing college successfully was the level of math that they completed in high school. More math means more academic and college success. I wish that elementary teachers would stop saying, "I'm not very good at math," and laughing about it. That's embarrassing. You cannot afford to be poor at math, elementary teachers. It will limit your students. Adults can still learn. Go back and strengthen your skills. And I say that from some experience as well. I have a wish for academia as well. Academia needs to compile a database of Seventh-day Adventist women working in STEM careers and highlight them as role models. We need to hear them. We need to hear their stories. We need to be able to ask them questions. Our students, both boys and girls, should not go into STEM departments and find that all the faculty are men. That is a skewed picture of what is possible. Women can be scientists and mathematicians and engineers and computer programmers, and they can do it just as well as men. The only way to learn that is for young people to see men and women both in action in those fields. And for our church needs to have an all hands on deck approach. The more researchers we have with an Adventist worldview in STEM fields, the more we will bring our unique perspectives to those fields, the more we're able to invite others to think differently, to see the world holistically. We have much to add to the body of knowledge in this world. Finally, we need to encourage research skills right from grade school on up. We need to foster careful analytical thinking and collaboration in inquiry. That will draw all the students in. including the girls. And with that, I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Keddingweller, for that provocative presentation. Oh, it makes us stop and think. But while the situation is not what we would like it to be, I am pleased that we have with us for this roundtable some amazing young women who have studied and are now practicing in various careers in the STEM subjects.
Today, I have the privilege of interviewing my older sister and role model, Dr. Nzisa Mutinga. Nzisa, tell us about the process that led to your decision to pursue a career in medicine.
As you remember, Mweni, I did not initially consider a career in medicine. I became very interested in pursuing a career in nursing in primary school. I was inspired by our mother, Gloria Mutinga, who was a registered nurse and whose gentle and kind demeanor piqued my interest in this field. A second motivating factor was a book that I read entitled A Lamp is Heavy by Sheila McKay Russell, which talks about some of the rewards as well as challenges of working as a nurse. And then, of course, there was our father, Professor Mutuku Mutinga, who is a scientist and who taught, amongst other things, medical parasitology at the University of Nairobi when we were children. We were fortunate to have a lot of exposure to scientific and medical books at home. And so it is that I was confident that I wanted to pursue a healthcare-related career. I decided to enroll in Oakwood University, following the footsteps of our mother. I completed the accelerated program in nursing and became a registered nurse at the age of 19. I worked part-time as a nurse during my time at Oakwood University. And over time, I realized that I wanted to have more direct patient care involvement in the role of patients in my career. I didn't know exactly what it was that I wanted to do, but I knew that nursing didn't quite give me all the involvement that I wanted. I was fortunate enough to meet a very important role model in my life who encouraged me to pursue a degree in biochemistry. I did that, and eventually I went on to obtain a Master of Science in Public Health at the Harvard School of Public Health. And while I was there, I realized that a career in medicine would be a good fit for me. I then went on to study medicine at the University of Alabama Birmingham School of Medicine.
So, Nzisa, can you tell us, how did you identify your mentor?
Funny that you would ask. I actually feel that he identified me, but of course it requires acceptance by the person being mentored. Early in my time at Oakwood University, when I was a nursing student, I had a work-study job in the Department of Chemistry. My supervisor was Dr. Ephraim Gwebu, and he saw my potential and really encouraged me to aim even higher than I was thinking and challenged me to consider a scientific research career. Being mentored by someone who had my best interests at heart and was willing to guide me even when my career path didn't end up in the pathway that he originally was guiding me down was invaluable. I don't think that my career would have taken the trajectory that it has had it not been for the mentorship by Dr. Gwebu at Oakwood University. Wendy, do you mind sharing with us a little bit about how it was that you chose a career in dentistry?
Oh, I'd love to. And to be honest, like many young people, I did not have a really good idea of what career to pursue when I was in primary school, secondary school, or even early on in university. Like you, I was surrounded by science because both of our parents had science backgrounds. However, looking back, I'd say that my biggest influence was actually our family dentist, Dr. Earl Richards, who practiced dentistry for many years at the Better Living Center in Nairobi, Kenya. As you remember, our older brother, Dr. Mathoka Mutinga, had some fear of going to see the dentist, but I did not. I used to feel a little left out when he had his teeth checked. I wanted my teeth checked too. So even though I did not have a dental appointment, Dr. Richards would take the time to sit me in the chair and take a look at my teeth. So from a very early age, I really felt comfortable in that environment. As you also remember, as a student in Standard 4, I had the opportunity to perform a play about dental health in front of President Moi, the president of Kenya at that time. So noticing my interest in dentistry, our parents arranged for an internship at the Better Living Center. And because of this, I started considering a career in dental hygiene. However, my high school science teacher, Mr. Lloyd Dull, who taught at Maxwell Adventist Academy, encouraged me to think bigger and consider a career in dentistry. I too went on to Oakwood University, like you and Mom, and I majored in biology. While I was there, I was able to participate in a unique opportunity offered by Loma Linda University. Now, this program offered an early glimpse into the field of dentistry, provided I finished my undergraduate degree in 3.5 years. This program, though it was very challenging, really solidified my decision to pursue a career in dentistry. So Zisa, let's talk about a little bit about the challenges in our careers. What challenges have you or do you experience as a woman of color and as a mother in your career in medicine?
Where do I begin? There are many challenges. These include few mentors, few role models to look up to, few women in medicine at the time that I was considering it as a career, and even fewer that were women of color. The challenges of juggling childcare with my career, limited resources and flexibility in the workplace for working mothers, pay inequity, fewer opportunities for advancement, and even disrespect by peers and sometimes by patients as well. These are but a few of the challenges that I have faced and that women face in general in these kinds of careers. But I truly believe that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and this never deterred me. Moini, I'm sure you have also faced a lot of challenges in your career. Do you mind sharing some of those with us as well?
Oh yes, Lisa. As you mentioned, the medical field, but especially the dental field, is male dominated. Women, especially women of color, are highly underrepresented in dentistry. In fact, I was the only African American female graduate in my class at Loma Linda University School of Dentistry. I distinctly remember the very first day of dental school. I entered my class just to realize I was the only Black woman in a class of 85 students. Many of the challenges I face very similar to yours, Nzisa. For example, at the private practice that I owned, I was frequently assumed to be a staff member instead of a dentist simply because I am a woman. And at times, my patients chose not to return based only on my ethnicity. But the amazing thing about it is, despite all of these challenges, God allowed my practice to flourish. So, Zisa, what can we do about this? What can we do to ensure that other women, especially women of color, have opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also known as STEM careers? What can we do?
I can think of several things to start. Number one, become a mentor. Number two, encourage our youth to seek internships and other opportunities to gain exposure to STEM-related careers. As they say, it's hard to become what you don't see. Number three, remind our youth and young adults that they need to take personal responsibility for their future. Don't wait for someone to hand you an opportunity. Put some time and effort into the process. Number 4, work on increasing the pipeline of women in color in STEM careers. For example, by sponsorship of programs for students in grade school, high school, and even colleges and universities. Encourage and fund collaborative programs, such as the program that enabled you, Mweni, to spend a semester at Loma Linda University School of Dentistry while you were a student at Oakwood University. And for those in science, technology, engineering, and mathematical careers, seek out leadership opportunities and other roles that will enable you to be more effective advocates for change.
So we can see that though we took very, very different paths, as he said, to reach our respective careers, our paths actually have several things in common. Loving, godly parents who cared about us, early exposure to science, excellent education at Seventh-day Adventist institutions, shadowing and internship experiences that opened the doors to other opportunities, wonderful mentors, and most importantly, our faith and trust in God's will for our lives. Thank you for this opportunity to share our stories.
We hope that this will encourage people who are considering science, technology, engineering, and mathematical careers to know that you can achieve your dreams. And for those who already have established careers, hopefully this will enable you to consider becoming a mentor. God bless you and have a wonderful day.
Have you ever been treated unfairly because you are a woman? There are 5 women in the Bible, Mala, Noah, Hogla, Milcah, and Tirzah, who suffered that very situation and decided to do something about it. You can read the story in Numbers 27. The people of Israel were about to enter the Promised Land, and the territory was being distributed among tribes and families. According to the law, it was the men who owned and inherited properties, but these 5 sisters had no brothers. So they went to Moses and the priest and requested to receive their share of property. When Moses presented their cares to the Lord, God said they were right. These 5 women not only received what they requested, they also paved the way for other women who would come after them. They set a precedent. Requesting things to God is risky because He may say yes. In my life, God has responded my prayers positively many times, but in 2 occasions I asked Him things related to my professional future that were especially difficult. I was finishing my biology degree at the University of Valencia when the city government was building the largest aquarium in Europe, the Oceanographic of Valencia. I've always loved animals and children, so I thought that it would be really cool to work there, to combine my passion for nature and my passion for education to teach children about animals in front of actual animals. I told God that I would like to be the director of education at the Oceanographic of Valencia, and He said yes. When the facility opened to the public, I was its first director of education. Time went by and I became interested in origin issues. It was great to teach children about nature, but I realized that they also needed to know about the creator of nature. And that was complicated because almost everywhere, the usual explanation for the wonders we see in nature was evolution. School textbooks, TV documentaries, and even the signs at the aquarium attributed the beauty and sophistication of animals, plants, and ecosystems to a slow natural process of trial and error. I also realized that Adventist children were affected and confused by this. They were told about Creation Week in church, but then they were told a completely different story at school. In Europe, we have only a few Adventist schools, so most children and teenagers go to public schools where they are taught evolution as incontrovertible a fact as the Second World War. I felt that God was calling me to do something. I came in contact with the Geoscience Research Institute, and shortly after, I was offered a scholarship to study my PhD in the Department of Earth and Biological Sciences of Loma Linda University, one of the few places in the world where you can study biology from a Christian creationist perspective. I was so impressed with what GRI and EBS were doing, spreading the creation message around the world, that I decided that I wanted to be one of these creation heroes. So my second super difficult request to God was this. All right, God, I will leave my home country and go to the US to study my PhD, but when I am done, I would like to come back to Europe and work for you as the director of the European branch office of GRI. There is no much point in trying to keep the intrigue in this part of the story, because if you read my credentials on screen before, you already know that God said yes. When I received the phone call confirming that I have been chosen for the position, I was actually scared, because when God says yes to you, that comes with a great responsibility. God gave me my heart's desire, but not for my own benefit. He had a purpose for me in this job, and for the last 5 years, I've been trying to figure out what that is and how to do it. Historically, science has been a male domain, but fortunately, things are changing. This is my colleague and friend, Ana Martinez. She is from Colombia and she loves rocks. When she said that she wanted to be a geologist, the news were not well received. Her family was worried because geology is a dangerous male-dominated career, and her pastor tried to change her mind because most geologists are evolutionists and atheists, and her faith would be challenged. But Anna is stubborn, so she followed her vocation and became a geologist. Today, she is an excellent professor and researcher. In fact, Anna is studying one of the most difficult topics that creationist scientists face today: radiometric dating. And she's finding promising results and publishing in renowned scientific journals. And I got a young Latin woman for my list of Christian scientists. But I want to have many more. We need more Adventist people in science. We need more Adventist girls and women in science. It is true that it's a difficult field. It is true that conventional science is dominated by a naturalistic paradigm. It is true that there are many atheist scientists. But if we want to balance the scales, the solution is not to scare our children and youth away from science. Just the opposite. We need to fill the scientific community with Christian people who do good science from a different perspective. We just need to be vigilant and caring and give our young people, our young girls, all the support they need when they face problems and challenges. This is what GRI is for. We are here to give you information and resources, but more than that, we've been there. We know how it feels, so we can provide mentoring, understanding, and advice. I want to finish by telling you about these 3 wonderful girls who are with me in this picture. They are sisters and live in the south of Spain. Last year, Emily, the youngest, emailed me after watching one of my videos for children. In that video, I presented the comic book Creation Detectives. That comic book tells the story of a real creationist scientific research project, but with fictional main characters. Instead of portraying the actual researchers, who tend to be mature white men, we present it as the adventures of a group of Christian teenagers and their funny dog. But the locations, facts, methods, and results are all real. One of the main characters is Diana, a smart and sensible young lady who is also a very committed Christian. Diana is a fictional character, but we included her because we want all the girls who read the comic book to identify with her. This is about them, and this is what God called me for. I want Emily and her sisters to know that although they are young and they are females, they can do whatever God is calling them to do. And I will be there for them. This is also valid for you. Girl or woman who are watching this and wondering if you could really become a scientist in your circumstances, in a country such as yours, in a difficult context, in a male-dominated society, or in a highly secular university. My recommendation, pray for it. Ask God and He will respond. And be ready because He may say yes. He said yes to the 5 sisters in the Bible. He said yes to me. He said yes to my friend Anna, so He may likely say yes to you. And when He does, you must go on and take up the challenge. But you will not be alone. God bless you.
Greetings to you all, and thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the Global Camp Meeting STEM education session on the plight of women and girls in STEM studies and careers. I will share my journey, starting with my background. I'm Rofilo Paswana Mafuya, second-born child and first-born girl of the 7 children of Simon and Emma Paswana, married to Pastor Mlondolozi Mafuya, who's the chief auditor at the Cape Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I grew up in a very humble family environment where my parents were laborers. I studied in underprivileged, understaffed, under-resourced schools, and I had many lacks in my upbringing that made the prospects of becoming a scientist or accessing science seem impossible. I chose to follow the epidemiology career. I'm one of the few qualified Black female epidemiologists in South Africa and Africa. I'm a scarce skills professor of epidemiology and public health at the University of Johannesburg. I followed epidemiology because knowledge is power. And because of my deep-seated passion to learn, to know more, to explore issues of HIV and AIDS, especially with South Africa being the epicenter of the epidemic. Since 2002, I've been working on HIV, looking at prevalence, incidence, risk factors, and determinants of HIV and HIV comorbidities, and looking at appalling disparities due to persistent inequalities and inequities that exist in South Africa. I used various rigorous epidemiological methods and to inform evidence-based interventions and improve availability and accessibility and affordability of healthcare services, as well as reduction of morbidity and mortality. Preparation for my epidemiology career involved huge supports from various institutions. Alone, I could never have done it. I was chosen for the Africa London Nagasaki Scholarship. I had the privilege of studying in a world-leading center for research and postgraduate education, being taught by world-class scientists, supported also by the Wellcome Trust and the A.B. Bailey Travel Award, which broadened my horizon, and also receiving international training from WHO and other international organizations. My interests were nurtured by a top cast of scientists. I've been a beneficiary of generosity. Got support from my family and from my mentors who were my anchor, especially when it comes to work-life balance issues. They also ignited my passion for science. Their resoluteness, decisiveness, and resourcefulness were instrumental in the success of my career. They led me to professional development and career development opportunities and created conducive work environment and put me in strategic positions and allowed me to attend international and national scientific meetings to keep myself abreast. I got various recognitions for outstanding contribution to science and technology. And the scriptural text there is very much appropriate of what God can do. CELC uses my career choice to motivate young girls to follow STEM careers. They write, being female shouldn't determine which career you venture into. We hope Paswana Mafuya's story has inspired you to reach your dreams. For a long time, careers in STEM were dominated by men. Professor Paswana Mafuya is one of the women in male-dominated careers. I give various epidemiology career talks. My science journey has been an amazing privilege, phenomenal experience. with great lessons, great supports, great engagements, but it has also been a barrier-breaking journey where I was in the minority in various positions as the only Black female and youngest at times, and I've felt some prejudices, some stereotypes, some gender insensitivity not being taken seriously, my unique context not being taken into consideration, alienation, sometimes even from fellow women. In the book, Holding the Knife's Edge, where journeys of 14 award-winning scientists have been documented, including mine, they write, to be born a female is to compete with your arms tied behind your back and blindfolded. The plight of women and girls in STEM persists. Stereotype, discrimination, myths about Black women's abilities and capabilities continue to exist. Women suffer opportunity losses, they persevere through various uncertainties and struggles, and so on. And one author says the workplace is a theater of patriarchy. As a result, I've devoted time to science ambassadorial duties where I inspire high school learners, science coaching among young scientists, science mentorship, and there's great appreciation for this by mentees, science communication, speaking to high school learners as well. What are the recommendations to take from here? We need to showcase women excellence to broaden access and inclusivity, align resources for equitable supports. Early recognition and nurturing of women's potential is important. Setting women up for long-term partnerships and networking opportunities is important. Professor Francis says we need to stop saying to women, change yourself. I fully subscribe to that. It will take more than just women changing themselves in order for them to succeed in science careers. We need to give them all the resources and supports as mentioned earlier. The issue of fighting stereotypes among girls and women is very topical. Early in the year, I was involved in a high-level webinar on the same issues. So key is that changing mindsets, fighting gender biases, patriarchal tendencies, societal and cultural norms, as well as stereotype is key for women to follow careers in science. This is what Dr. Tasnika says, and I fully subscribe. We need to empower women. Knowledge is power. Sometimes they need to be gently persuaded. They have various insecurities due to external environment they find themselves in. It is a well-known fact that women are agents of change. They are the driving force that can create better lives for all. They can uplift the social status of women everywhere. So we better invest in them. This is what Margaret Chan says, and I fully concur. STEM mentorship is key and is greatly appreciated by mentees. For my story, full story, check my book, which will soon be released, that features mentees and incorporates the different parts of my journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your life stories and all of the passion you put into this. It is amazing what you have shared with us, and we hope that little girls everywhere are listening, will be listening, and will be drawn into science as each of you was, and then that they will be equally successful as you. So thank you, Dr. Mutinga, Dr. Arroyo, and Dr. Mufaya. Thank you so much for sharing. Welcome, Dr. Pennycook. While the university, affectionately known as ALCA, has been there for some time, the School of Medicine literally just opened its doors. And so I know, as you have indicated, you are going to focus on the reflections that have come to you as you have gone into that endeavor of starting a medical school there in Rwanda. Thank you so much for being with us.
Again, welcome from the Adventist School of Medicine of East Central Africa here in Kigali. And I want to talk a little bit to you about the medical education as a case study for women in Adventist medical education. This is part of our school, and I want to touch on 5 different points. Connect medicine as part of the STEM programs, to understand the history of women in medicine, to know a little bit about the Adventist education, women in ASOME, which is the acronym for the Adventist School of Medicine here in East Central Africa, and to explore really quick a couple of recommendations applicable, as mentioned before, as a wish list or as a dream list of what we'd like to see at some point. In medicine, in the past, it was usually dedicated only for midwives and nurses that we would find in the history of health professionals. With time, this has changed. And we'll find a lot of history in Greek literature, although you can find some in Chinese literature as well. But specifically in Greek literature of Aspasia, as one of the first persons to be known as a physician, and in the 4th century, and Cleopatra Metrodora, who wrote actually books on how to deal with women in health, specifically women in health. And this is something that we can go from way back. As mentioned, it's also in other Egyptian literature. You'll find some, but we don't have some accurate articles that can define this. They're not easy to find out there. If we go back to the US and we talk a little bit more about the history of medicine there and women specifically, the first female student was Dr. Blackwell Elizabeth. Story says that she applied almost to 10 different schools before being admitted into the university to study medicine. And once she graduated, she really struggled to get a job. What was curious about this is that once she decided and she realized that it was going to be difficult, she decided to start a hospital that would attend only for women. And she took care of that. On the other side, there's Anne Preston. She also is the first female dean that the US had. But what about the church? Should our church, the SDA Church, encourage women in the medical field? And we start this, and we have to start this conversation from Genesis 1:27, when the concept was to have everything as equal, male and female. We remember the first Adventist Health Reform Institute. We had Dr. Lamson at that time there. But even during that time, we must remember as well in 1876, when we had not only Dr. Kellogg, who was supported by James White, but Dr. Kate Lindsay, who was encouraged by the Whites to study medicine. She paid her own fees throughout school, and she graduated and then started working out, again with the support of the board chairman. It was a verbal support, not a financial support, but he had the support then. And that helped out with the studies that were there. Today, and even, I'm sorry, back then in 1891, because I'm mostly interested in the startup of the schools, it was 35% of the ladies, 35% of the class were women, 7 out of 20 on that first cohort. You can find that on Robinson, on the health education that we have. But nowadays it's different. Nowadays we have 7 other schools, and 48% of the total of the total admissions that we have currently at Loma Linda is ladies, is women. Although the last cohort that they have admitted is the last 2 cohorts actually have more than 50%. So it's now starting to get a balance in there. The second school, which was Montemorelos, who came up 40 years after Loma Linda, currently has about 57% that are ladies. 64% that we have for Argentina are ladies currently out of the total amount. We do not know for Peru. We know for Philippines that it's 69%. We're not too sure about Babcock University. And here where we're starting, we have 31% here at the university. This is what our school looks like, Asome, Adventist School of Medicine of East Central Africa. And certain challenges are met when we're trying to get more ladies in. Sponsorship, the opportunity is not the same. Marriage and childbearing years, you would understand that to admit ladies in this environment, the society does not wants them to be childbearing, and as they come into the medical school, the barrier is told to them, said to them, that it would be safer if they delay a little bit on having these. And all of this is huge. 80% of our students are government sponsored. The SDA Church sponsors only 22% of this 80%. The government sponsors 30% here in Rwanda. If you think about it, the Rwanda has done a huge emphasis and focus on this, trying to even developing a ministry of gender and family promotion. And there's certain things that are interesting on this. Although the gender promotion policies are meant for both boys and girls, they still measure how many of these girls are receiving the benefits on the program. So even from giving one laptop for every child that comes in, to making direct policies and making sure that the quality is done and making sure that the retention is also observed is something that is seen on specific policies that the government has. We had here in the university, we've targeted specifically for these next admissions on the ladies that are coming with us. We have in retention a mentorship program where we designed it to be based on the gender. So we want the young ladies that we have to have ladies that are looking at, that they can look up to ladies. One of them, you see it way here at the end of the picture that was taken. She's the World Health Organization representative here in Rwanda. And she's a Seventh-day Adventist. She had a beautiful conversation with the ladies just a few days ago, with our young ladies that are studying. And also in the retention program, we have support groups where we have some of our own staff that are women, that are ladies that dedicate time to be able to be with them. Future plans we have for facilities that can have for married couples. As you know, sometimes as these institutions are starting, they only start with a male dorm and a female dorm, but nothing for the married couples. And eventually they do need the support. They do need to understand that. Wish list for us, we need to acknowledge that there's a relevance of women in STEM programs. We need to evaluate the specific challenges that women face in their societies here. We need to develop plans to face these specific challenges that we have. And we need to promote the awareness much more of women in STEM programs within the church and educational institutions. Thank you very much from Asome.
Thank you, Dr. Pennicook, for that wonderful presentation. And I say wonderful because you have spoken truth to us. You have brought us back to the point that we need to remember the history. And thank you also, Dr. Ketting-Weller, for your presentation in which you did the same thing. You took us through the history, but you also connected us to a personal story. Both of you have given powerful presentations that we pray will not just end with the closing of this session, but rather will be the starter for something much bigger. Thank you very much for being with us in this Global Camp Meeting Roundtable, and for all that you do for girls and women in STEM studies and careers.